Good morning, distinguished guests, colleagues, and the dedicated men and women of the United States Coast Guard. I am Master Chief Jason Vanderheyden, and it is my privilege to be here with you today. We've had one of the most challenging years to date as a nation, a service, and without question, we've pulled through. Families from a global pandemic and 30 named storms, our Coast Guard men and women have prevailed. They have sacrificed, remained resilient, and got the mission done. How? Because of teamwork. We are a team. Every single one of us has contributed to the success of the United States Coast Guard. Take a look at Training Center Cape May. This determined team led through crisis. These frontrunners overcame unexpected obstacles and developed a plan of action to ensure training continued. And it wasn't just Cape May. Our training centers all over the nation continued to plot an unfamiliar course through uncharted waters for mission success. Let's take a look at a team. DC-1 Christina Kimball and Seaman Ariel Medlin are a great example of teamwork. Before Seaman Medlin ever visited her recruiting office in Hawaii, she discovered the Remote Mentorship Assistance Program, which is part of the Coast Guard Mentoring Project. Fortune and good luck paired Seaman Medlin with DC-1 Kimball. And although DC-1 Kimball is stationed all the way in Mobile, Alabama, she was able to mentor Seaman Medlin back in Hawaii. DC-1 Kimball knew the recruiters in Honolulu and was able to make the necessary connections to get Seaman Medlin started. Although Seaman Medlin's recruit process wasn't easy, DC-1 kept tabs on her and encouraged her through the entire journey. DC-1 Kimball's dedication to help Seaman Medlin achieve her goals embody the heart and soul of Team Coast Guard. Let's take a look at Seaman Katie Kilroy. This young lady epitomizes what it means to be a Coastie. As a non-rate, her drive to become a public affairs specialist landed her on the Coast Guard cutters Tahoma and Campbell during their August 2020 Arctic deployment. She not only successfully told the story of the dynamic operations our crews conducted in the Arctic, but her compassion prompted her to buy a complete stranger a meal who was sitting alone at a diner in Nuuk, Greenland. Little did Seaman Kilroy know that this stranger was Greenland's premier, Mr. Kim Kielsen. This kind of gesture started a lasting relationship with Mr. Kielsen and the U.S. Coast Guard, strengthening our partnerships in an increasingly competitive Arctic domain. Team Coast Guard doesn't have a bench. Every position, every person is a valuable part of our service and is critical to our mission success. Whether you're working buoys on the Mississippi River, catching drug smugglers in the Caribbean, or at a diner in Greenland paying it forward, our actions reflect who we are to the communities we work and live, the American people we serve, and as a global model to all. We are a well-oiled machine because we all contribute to the mission's success. We are stronger together.
2020 was a challenging year.
The World Health Organization has just declared that this is a pandemic.
It was an incredibly busy hurricane season.
When I think of the performance of our Coast Guard, two words come to mind. One is the resilience of our incredible Coast Guard workforce, and secondly is their incredible dedication to duty.
We still have the same mission to turn civilians into the future of the Coast Guard to the same standards to get out there to conduct Coast Guard missions.
Everything together made it a more difficult situation, and I'm thankful our Coasties adapted, innovated, and figured out a way to overcome and get the mission done. This ability to work together is definitely the essence of what makes the Coast Guard what we are. We are stronger when we work with each other. We're stronger when we support each other. We are stronger together.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our 26th Commandant, Admiral Karl Schultz.
Well, thank you, Master Chief Vanderheyden, and to Captain Tim Borelli and the Sector San Diego team. Thank you for hosting my third State of the Coast Guard address. And thank you, Secretary Mayorkas, represented here today by our local DHS teammates in attendance. And to my fellow Coast Guardsmen, thank you for your participation today. A little over a year ago in Charleston, my annual address showcased the work of the service through the actions and efforts of extraordinary Coast Guardsmen. We reflected on the impact a single member can make towards unit mission success. And that message continues to ring true today. Across the service and around the world, I see individual Coast Guardsmen contributing to their communities, securing the homeland, enhancing our economic prosperity, and advancing our national interests across the globe. Since that address, our nation and our service have encountered many challenges, some which have altered our lives and truly tested our resolve. Against the backdrop of a global pandemic, our communities witnessed a national awakening for social justice. And as an organization, we continue to look inward and evaluate our actions with renewed determination to achieve a fully inclusive United States Coast Guard. 2020 was a record year for destructive fires here in the West. It was also the most active Atlantic Basin hurricane season on record. It required many Coast Guardsmen to first evacuate their homes and then join response efforts. The past year has been difficult for so many in our workforce, particularly for those members of our team juggling childcare, online schooling, and in some cases, care for elderly family members. It's been especially demanding for units and teams balancing these demands while providing new services, like the Coast Guard Academy that implemented on-site COVID surveillance testing so classes could continue, or like Training Center Petaluma that quickly adapted to online training, or like Base San Juan's enlisted dining facility that, following the closure of local restaurants and supermarkets, increased service to provide meals to active duty, contractors, civilian personnel, and our Coast Guard families. Thank you, team, for being so agile and adaptive. That mindset has truly enabled our success. And undoubtedly, the greatest burden has fallen on the shoulders of our deployed forces. COVID protocols and restrictions made already demanding import training and cutter maintenance all the more challenging. And crews experienced extended restriction of movement periods as they readied for deployment and operations. Some crew members aboard our newest national security cutter, the Stone, had to physically isolate themselves for 2-week stints, 7 different times. To keep crews healthy and COVID-free, cutters deployed without port calls or shoreside liberty. Our deployed forces had to be incredibly resilient and creative to get the job done, to maintain morale, and basically to stay safe. To our deployed forces, well done and thank you for rising above. And in reflecting on the past year, I'd be remiss this morning if I didn't thank both Coast Guard Mutual Assistance and the Coast Guard Foundation for their amazing support of Team Coast Guard. Today, I will focus my remarks through 2 lenses. The first is a look within our service. The second, a look to the external demand signals and opportunities facing our global Coast Guard. I hope this approach allows you to see what I see every day. Amazing efforts by Coast Guardsmen working together because we are indeed stronger together. Let's start with you, our Coast Guardsmen. You provide your units, your communities, and our nation technical competence and unmatched professionalism. You approach your duties with a bias for action. You save mariners in distress. You thwart illicit activities, and you respond to contingencies. And you engage across a wide range of international, interagency, joint service, and maritime organizations to forge networks, to solve problems, and to achieve common goals. Coast Guardsmen absolutely excel in building and leveraging what I call human-to-human partnerships across the globe. And today, our service remains at an inflection point. And at the heart of that inflection point sits one thing: service readiness. That demand for Coast Guard capabilities that's increasing, both domestically and in support of DoD combatant commanders and American embassies across the world. Coast Guard readiness is at the core of our ability to meet both current and future mission demands. Readiness includes recruiting, training, and retaining a capable and skilled workforce. Readiness requires empowering our workforce with the information, knowledge, and skills and support systems that allows them to excel across the full spectrum of Coast Guard operations. And when we provide our workforce with both an inclusive environment in which all members can thrive and the tools to get the job done, therein resides mission success and high employee satisfaction, and therein we remain an employer of choice. To foster an inclusive environment, we are updating our training courses, leadership competencies, and our evaluation systems. We're also exploring A-School ASVAB qualifying scores, the gateway to our enlisted ratings, to maximize opportunities for all. And units across the Coast Guard are implementing our diversity and inclusion action plan in innovative ways. By summer's end, we'll have trained 125 change agents who will connect with hundreds of units per year to deliver training and facilitate conversations about the power of diversity and inclusion. Look at District 9 and Sector New York leaders who engage with their units, hosting listening sessions and small group discussions to foster inclusive environments. In Maine, Station Southwest Harbor's Petty Officer Christine Hemphill demonstrated what I call deck plate level leadership when she formed a cultural climate team with local law enforcement agencies. The team creates a way to educate local citizens on issues facing underrepresented minorities in their community, as well as fosters better working relationship between law enforcement, schools, and local citizens. Well done, MK2 Hemphill. And we know that access to mentors is important. That's why we're piloting a new mobile-enabled mentoring program to connect mentees and mentors across our entire workforce. I'm pleased to announce that the Coast Guard mentoring program will be rolled out by summer. It will offer traditional one-on-one mentoring, but also the flexibility to foster inclusion and connection with our many Coast Guard communities. And we also know that our members are lifelong learners. Therefore, I'm pleased to announce that effective immediately, we will increase the annual amount of tuition assistance by 66% to better support our members pursuing their first certificate in college degrees. And knowing that we'll onboard about 2,000 new afloat and support billets for our cutter fleet, our deputy commandants for operations and mission support, in conjunction with our area commanders, have stood up a Sea Duty Readiness Council to challenge ourselves to think differently about how we crew and maintain our cutters, to think differently about how we appropriately recognize the challenge and sacrifice of going to sea. I've challenged this group to explore all out-of-the-box options. In our complex operating environment and challenging missions makes it critical that we harness the full power of the background, experience, and imagination of every single member of our Coast Guard workforce. I challenge each of you to put your shoulder into this endeavor. This is commander's business. This is essential to remaining Semper Paratus, always ready. And when I look at our mission-ready total workforce that includes 8,900 civilians who provide technical skills and leadership, ensure continuity, and inject invaluable perspective and sage advice. 2020 showcased our civilians' ingenuity and their resolve, perhaps no more so than our Coast Guard Yard employees in Curtis Bay, Maryland. They completed the Service Life Extension Project on our 140-foot icebreaker tugs and continued both scheduled and unscheduled emergency repair work on afloat assets, all in an environment that did not lend itself well to social distancing. Our Coast Guard employees at the yard also enabled the logistics of moving Coast Guard Cutter Healy's 140-ton spare main propulsion generator from its Coast Guard Yard storage facility onto a barge for a 6,000-mile transit to meet Cutter Healy in Upper San Francisco Bay. And our Surface Forces Logistics Center successfully completed emergency repairs on the Healy, returning her to her home port in preparation for a historic Arctic patrol this coming summer. Bravo Zulu to everyone who contributed to these Herculean logistics and repair efforts. Bolstering the strength of our service is 22,000 auxiliaries who primarily enhance our boating safety program. However, 2020 clearly showcased our auxiliaries' ingenuity. Of note, our 75 auxiliary clergy members more than doubled the number of our own chaplain corps, providing spiritual and mental health support for our members under considerable stress this past year. And today, auxiliaries with expertise in engineering and cybersecurity actively support 20 ongoing research and development innovation projects, injecting diversity, unique skill sets, and fresh perspectives to our research and development teams. Thank you to the best volunteers in the world. And this year, our 6,000 Coast Guard reservists answered the call, providing both surge capacity and force augmentation. Today, Coast Guard reservists are deployed across the country, and they're supporting FEMA's nationwide COVID-19 vaccination rollout. And last spring, 500 reservists were mobilized in support of COVID-19 response efforts, including staffing our permanent change of station assist teams that helped over 13,000 Coast Guard members and families carry out their permanent change of station moves at a time when every state had different COVID risks and different safety measures in effect. And reservists at Base Kodiak's Personnel PCS support team, they assisted 1,200 members, rotating to and from Alaska. The assist team offered one-on-one counseling to disseminate time-sensitive travel information. They provided up-to-date guidance on state testing protocols, and they helped create alternative options for those who experienced travel delays because of shutdowns on the Alaska Marine Highway Ferry System. Truly amazing work in support of our shipmates. In looking back in 2019, I announced that reservists would be utilized to backfill our active duty personnel taking parental leave upon the birth or adoption of a new child. This initiative has enabled our new parents to fully leverage expanded parental leave authorities. In 2020, Coast Guard surge staffing assigned component reserve volunteers to cover down for 123 such active duty leave situations. And Reservist First Class Petty Officer James Rees, a firefighter and a medic in his civilian life, filled an ME2 position at Maritime Safety and Security Team Kings Bay for 4 months so that a permanently assigned active duty member could take parental leave. Within 1 week of reporting, Petty Officer Rees recertified as a boarding team member and earned 3 new competencies. He also forward deployed with the MISS team to the 8th District in response to 4 named tropical storms. And in the process, trained 23 new flood responders from 4 different Coast Guard units, enhancing Atlantic area's deployable specialized forces response capability. You talk about a win-win. Thanks for your service, Petty Officer Reeves. And this summer, we instituted what we call FlexPal, which allows our reservists to train closer to where they live. We're also creating billets around hubs where we can rotate reservists through different unit types within a geographical region. And for members who leave active duty but continue to serve in our reserve component, we now offer an option to defer involuntary activation from 1 year from that date of reserve affiliation. On the recruiting front, the Coast Guard's now offering a 2-year active duty enlistment designed for candidates interested in serving but reluctant to commit to a longer contract. The program is also intended to grow the Reserve Corps, as those who use this option serve for 2 years on active duty, followed by 4 in the drilling reserve, and finally 2 years as individual readied reserve. And over the next 5 years, the Coast Guard's projected to commission approximately 2,500 active duty officers, over half, which will come through non-academy accession sources. To aid in broadening the diversity of our officer corps, we have onboarded the new officer recruiting team to better reach underrepresented candidates. And today, we're working smarter and collaboratively. For years, individual programs have looked at portfolios through what I call a straw, a single view of sorts. For example, recruiters do what? They recruit. Assignment officers assign, and trainers train. But we must condition ourselves to look at the interrelatedness of programs and activities. We must adopt a kaleidoscope view of sorts to see this interrelatedness and how it affects our programs. And given the importance of talent management, we're developing a new Ready Workforce 2030 strategic outlook focused on how we collaborate to recruit, train, support, and retain our mission-ready total workforce. Many of these initiatives require a strong foundation in technology. At last year's State of the Coast Guard, I announced a tech revolution Since then, we've leapfrogged ahead, and with the help of Congress, put the Coast Guard on a much better trajectory with respects to C5I. In the past year, we've migrated to a cloud-based suite of collaboration tools, and we've increased the ability to connect our workforce, whether the improved cutter connectivity underway in import or whether it's greatly enhanced telework capability. And to build on our increased cutter connectivity success, we will pilot underway Wi-Fi on 2 cutters this year, enabling our deployed crews to stay better connected with friends and family while they serve underway. And we're modernizing our financial ledgers to improve transparency and efficiency across the service. This will accelerate parts delivery to frontline units, reduce the administrative burden for operators, and leverage big data for cost savings. And we're leveraging telehealth capabilities to increase the reach of 13 new mental health professionals and 8 soon-to-be recruited regional nurse case managers, while also exploring the employment of enlisted behavioral health technicians to better support our workforce's mental health needs. And to increase the mobility of our workforce, starting with several 1st District units, from Station Cape Cod to Sector Long Island Sound, we'll replace old desktop computers with new mobile workstations, such as 2-in-1 tablets, enabling our workforce to work on the job, while on the road, or from home. And this year, FORCECOM will leverage 3,000 2-in-1 tablets and a new wireless service at our major training centers to increase training efficiencies and effectiveness, both in and out of the classroom. And at last year's address, I announced the creation of an enhanced capability to communicate with and across our workforce. And you know what? Our small but incredibly talented public affairs team has risen to the occasion and recently launched My Coast Guard, both a website and a mobile app, enabling you to get Coast Guard information and news right at your fingertips. All these initiatives improve our readiness and serve to attract and retain our talented workforce. And in order to maintain this critical momentum and close the Coast Guard readiness gap, our service needs sustained operations and support budget growth of 3 to 5% annually. Why? Because the Coast Guard delivers solutions. No one can do what we do, particularly on the budget we operate with. And our ability to seamlessly integrate into both joint and interagency operations, our broad mission authorities, and our unrivaled on-scene initiative creates a growing and persistent demand for Coast Guard services. Our Coast Guardsmen listening today are part of a 57,000-member workforce, augmented by our 22,000 volunteer auxiliaries, dispersed across the nation at more than 1,000 different units, with many deployed around the world. And here at home in the United States, our duty stations cover the 361 seaports and the 25,000 plus miles of navigable waterways that serve as a key economic driver for American prosperity. We pride ourselves in being always ready for enduring missions that protect our commercial fishing fleets and our recreational boaters from Guam to Alaska to Puerto Rico and all points in between. And we're always ready to support emerging demands, such as increased manned space flights and rapidly developing offshore energy production. Day in and day out, wherever we are needed, our Coast Guardsmen answer the call, frequently relying on just true grit and ingenuity, like this rescue, reminiscent of our life-saving service history.
As Coast Guardsmen, we take immense pride in serving the public. We're always ready. We're ready to put everything on the line so we may save that one life. We train all year long for that one call.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Fishing Vessel Legend. Fishing Vessel Legend. Mayday, mayday, mayday.
We got a mayday call from the Fishing Vessel Legend. They had hit the jetties and were taking on water. And so our game plan was to get airborne and find out where this guy was at.
We launched from Air Facility Newport, and almost immediately after takeoff hit turbulence and extremely low visibility. At that point in time, the weather wasn't worth putting my crew in this position to get to the Survivor to hoist, so we returned to base.
The first surf boat went out and entered the surf zone. It couldn't get close enough to the Mariner, who is now strapped to the top of the pilot house.
So we had no aircraft availability to get to him. The surf boat wasn't going to be able to get to him. And that limited our response pretty much from the beach.
I put BM1 Qual in charge of the beach rescue, and we'd have him drive out to the beach to figure out where this boat was and also see if we can get our guys out to get him off before the surf engulfed the boat and we lost the fisherman.
Where he was a pretty far distance from shore, and due to the environment and the size of the breaking waves, didn't have a high level of confidence that I wanted to get into the water right at that point.
You know, the boat started breaking apart to the point where the master felt he had to go now.
I'm going down. I'm going down.
I needed to do something, so at that point we made the call that I was going to get in the water. I could really feel that the current was pretty strong, that it was going to be pretty challenging to try and swim to where he was at. So I just put my head down and swam as hard as I could. Once I got a hold of him, then we were able to communicate with the crew, giving line commands, and then they immediately started to haul us back in.
That night exemplifies what it means to be a Coast Guardsman.
I think it's the missions just like these that motivate us to stay ready for the next call.
Mayday, mayday, mayday!
This powerful story not only captures the strength of our workforce, including the Sector North Bend Command Center and our crews from Air Facility Newport and Station Aquina Bay, it also showcases the empowerment of junior members who exercise a bias for action daily in a multitude of missions. And just weeks ago, I heard of another heroic 13th District rescue. Air Station North Bend's rescue swimmer, Trevor Salt, was lowered from a Dolphin helicopter to assist two stranded hikers, one who had fallen 50 feet from a cliff and was critically injured. AS2 Salt created shelter from the wind, spent 12 hours overnight on the steep and frigid mountainside with the patient, administering medical care and making preparations for the next day evacuation by an Oregon National Guard helicopter. Well done, Petty Officer Salt. And every Coast Guard mission like these begins and ends at a facility, the hub for Coast Guard workforce. We launch boats and cutters from small boat stations and piers, aircrafts from hangars and runways. Watchstanders coordinate operations from command centers, and mission support professionals enable our frontline operators from bases and logistics centers. Our Coast Guard units have galleys that feed our crews, barracks that house our members, and warehouses that store and ship critical parts. And to remain always ready, we must invest and update these shore facilities to meet today's standards for both efficiency and resilience. Across the service, we have dozens of facilities requiring significant engineering support and investment. Here's an example of what we do when we do get an inject of funds. In 2013, we constructed new facilities at Sector Houston-Galveston with the help of Congress through an appropriation of supplemental hurricane funds. The new sector building houses a modern 24-hour command center, a vessel traffic service that guides over 175,000 vessel transits annually on one of America's busiest waterways, a 400-person conference room that transfers and transforms into a regional incident command post, and a Coast Guard medical clinic that supports 2,400 outpatient visits a year. This building was designed and built to modern codes and hurricane standards. And in 2017, it stood up to Category 4 Hurricane Harvey, one of the most significant tropical storm events in the United States, delivering heavy winds and 52 inches of rainfall in Houston. And you know what? This modern, more importantly, resilient Sector Houston-Galveston building enabled the work of 1,700 personnel who conduct Coast Guard operations in the area, work that ensures maritime safety, security, and environmental stewardship, work that advances our economic prosperity, work that also supports our national security, as the Port of Beaumont is one of the nation's key militarily strategic seaports. Investments such as that in Sector Houston-Galveston show what we can accomplish in other locations. With support of the administration and Congress like that provided in the 2021 Appropriations Act, we can upgrade facilities to provide our dedicated workforce the infrastructure they need and deserve to best address the maritime needs of the nation. Without support provided, we're working on Coast Guard housing in locations across the country, including Jonesport, Maine, where residents will move in this week. In partnership with the Alaska delegation, Congress has appropriated funds for 3 new phases of government housing in Kodiak, Alaska. Renovations span new construction, contracted by our Coast Guard civil engineers, as well as smaller self-help projects initiated by recently promoted housing assistance teams. Such efforts mean a lot to our families who reside in any one of our roughly 3,200 Coast Guard homes. But I note, less than 10% of our Coast Guard members live in government housing. That's a stark difference from our DoD counterparts. The shortage of adequate housing in remote locations and in many of the high-cost cities we operate is a recurring concern we hear from our crews, a concern we look forward to addressing with the continued support of the administration and of the Congress. In April, we will break ground on our first new aviation unit in more than 2 decades, located right here in Southern California. Air Station Ventura County will significantly enhance our aviation multi-mission capability in this Southern California region. Looking 15 years or so down the road at our rotary wing aviation program, we will likely find ourselves linked to DoD's Future Vertical Lift Initiative. But before then, we need to strategically manage our legacy MH-65 Dolphin and MH-60 helicopter fleets to remain always ready for America's call. Looking across our 2 rotary wing fleets, we find the Jayhawk has a robust domestic industrial base that can help buy down our operating risk in the decade ahead. 2 weeks ago, in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, I observed our first MH-60 Tango Jayhawk, outfitted with blade fold, tail fold capability that will enable deployment aboard national security cutters and our future polar security and offshore patrol cutters. And this year, we will transition Air Station Borinquen in Puerto Rico from a Dolphin to a Jayhawk unit, adding additional reach and contingency response capability to the Eastern Caribbean, not to mention a likely land-based aviation use of force capability. And Air Station New Orleans will be the next to transition. We will also transition Coast Guard Air Station Barbers Point from decades-old C-130H model fixed-wing aircraft to modern, sophisticated C-130Js, and provide a hangar to protect and support these new platforms. The C-130J's greater speed and endurance make the aircraft ideally suited for standing the watch over the waters in our interest in the vast Oceania region. And in support of NORTHCOM and NORAD, we have started engineering work for Link 16 installs aboard our National Capital Regional Air Defense Facility helicopters. This tactical data link will better network our aircraft that perform this important capital region mission. And from air stations to boat stations, American communities depend on their local Coast Guard to have the tools and technology to safeguard our economically vital waters, protect port-critical infrastructure, and rescue mariners in distress. Make no doubt about it, we are indeed a maritime nation, and America's waterways provide our country with tremendous global advantage. Our ocean routes, our coastal ports, and our inland waterways make up our marine transportation system. Our energy, consumer goods, and other commodities, representing 26% of our nation's gross domestic product, are transported on these waters, and they provide 31 million American jobs. Our seaports are the gateways for 90% of America's international trade. And from marine inspectors who inspect vessels to the National Maritime Center that credentials operators, the Coast Guard helps oversee this economic engine that ensure products arrive at businesses in every corner of our country. And I have to give a shout out to our credentialed U.S. merchant mariners who form the backbone of the marine transportation system. Last year, the Coast Guard made sure these marine operators were categorized as essential workers. Annually, they are responsible for $5.4 trillion of economic activity that America depends on. And throughout this global pandemic, these professionals kept products moving to ensure stores were stocked with medicine and critical supplies. And our nation's inland waterway system includes 12,000 miles of commercially navigable waterways and some 240 locks. These inland marine highways enable tugs and barges to transport annually 570 million tons of cargo, valued at $230 billion. Think about it. It would take an extra 21 million tractor-trailer trucks on America's roadways to move the same amount of cargo as U.S. barges do each and every year. And here you see Cutter Kanawha, a 75-foot river tender pushing a 100-foot aids to navigation barge as it marks a navigable channel. Workhorses like Kanawha service more than 28,000 marine aids to navigation. They provide a federal presence on our inland waterways, and they keep this system moving. The average age of this inland fleet is over 50 years, but I'm excited to say that we'll issue a request for proposal this year to replace our legacy fleet of tenders with new waterways commerce cutters, and we anticipate awarding a detailed design and construction contract in the spring of 2022. And these new cutters will offer more afloat opportunities for our women shipmates. In our inland cutters and our heartland sectors responded to over 1,100 marine incidents in 2020. And those include marine casualties, oil discharges, hazardous material releases, and various security threats. These marine incidents can close ports and waterways, resulting in lost economic activity. And that's measured in millions of dollars each and every day. As I mentioned earlier, last year was a record hurricane season in the Atlantic Basin, with 12 hurricanes making landfall in the United States. Every one of them affected marine and maritime commerce and marine stakeholders. Coast Guard captains of the port in the 8th Coast Guard District alone closed and safely reopened ports along the Gulf Coast 35 separate times. And reconstituting our waterways after an incident or a storm is indeed all hands on deck work. Major storms blocked channels with debris, sunken vessels, and displaced buoys. Hurricane Laura alone created $10 billion in damage, and it took the leadership of Marine Safety Unit Port Arthur, in conjunction with other port partners, to get the critical Calcasieu and Sabine Neches waterways back in business. These waterways rank as the 3rd busiest in the United States in terms of cargo tonnage. And after Category 4 Hurricane Laura passed through Louisiana in August, Coast Guard crews from across the Southeast repaired 80 navigational aids, including retrieval of buoys adrift offshore. These hardworking crews received top-notch support from Sector Field Office in Galveston, our Civil Engineering Unit in Miami, and even the Maritime Administration's Cape Texas, a ready reserve vessel that housed our crews in the Port of Beaumont during the storm. In just 4 days, they enabled deep water traffic to resume transporting America's vital energy resources. And in response to these successive natural disasters in the 8th District, members of our Director of Operational Logistics team, including damage assistance teams, repair teams, command support elements, and the mobile support unit, undertook the massive effort of helping our local units restore their operations, and in some cases, assisted our families restore their lives, their damaged homes. Well done to all. But hurricanes aren't the only threat to the marine transportation system. We have recently stood up the Maritime Cyber Readiness Branch within our Coast Guard Cyber Command to lash together cybersecurity and port operations to better protect maritime infrastructure and vessels from cyber attack. This branch investigates all reported cyber incidents in the marine transportation system, and they share important findings with maritime partners and other stakeholders to build a more resilient network. Combined with our cyber protection team that's certified now, trained, and deployable for prevention and response operations, the Coast Guard is taking an important and necessary steps to increase safety and security where physical and cyber threats converge. We maintain a strong relationship with our U.S. port partners. We uphold leadership roles on area maritime security and harbor safety committees, and we have the technological expertise to integrate cyber awareness and resilience within the marine transportation system. Building collaboration in such an environment, that's a hallmark of our service. The nation this year witnessed the Coast Guard and its partners respond to a never-seen-before maritime challenge.
We had never responded to something like this before. We knew we would have to take risks because people's lives were on the line, and they were depending on what we would do next. We had begun the year hearing of this pandemic that was occurring in the Far East.
COVID-19 continues to spread worldwide.
Life on lockdown. If they find sort of one person who tests positive, suddenly these cruise ships need a place to go.
In the midst of this uncertainty, that's when I got the call.
We were just notified that the Grand Princess has possible cases of COVID-19.
As soon as she said it, your train, it's like, okay, this is go time. Medical supplies were delivered, but it wasn't enough. And we knew that as we were getting reports of medical distress for passengers on board, that we were going to have to launch our Ready Cutter, the Coast Guard Cutter Turn, to effect the medical evacuation. We knew that this was the beginning, as there are other cruise ship ports around the United States, especially the port of Miami.
So far, every port in the ship's path has shut down, refusing to let the Zaandam dock.
It seemed as though every ship that came in, and there were about 125 of them, had different challenges, had different levels of COVID-like illness or COVID-positive patients on board. Our plan really was to communicate openly with one another as partners, to leverage each of our authorities so that when the cruise ships came in, we could get them home safely.
Turn was able to medevac 4 personnel from the Grand Princess and also transfer several doctors and medical supplies to the Grand Princess. It felt good to be at the center of that, flying that flag, coming back into the bay, knowing that everyone was watching, knowing that we were able to help all these people.
As a unified command, it was determined that the Port of Oakland had the space, had the security that would be able to carry out the safe disembarkation of the passengers.
I spent an awful lot of time in government, and I struggled to find another agency who could, as well as we did as a Coast Guard, engage our partners in our community and really help curate the emotion of the moment to help our community, our Coast Guard, and our nation through this crisis. I couldn't be prouder of the work we've all done together.
Truly, a strength of the United States Coast Guard is our ability to bring people together to get things done. The Coast Guard's unique authorities and capabilities provide maritime safety and security both at home and abroad. For over 30 years, the Coast Guard's worked with the Department of Defense, leading Joint Interagency Task Force South, the gold standard for joint interagency intel-driven maritime operations. JADF South is composed of representatives from 16 agencies and 21 international partners from around the world. These partner seizures are distinct and additive to the 2.4 million pounds of illegal drugs the United States Coast Guard has interdicted at sea over the past 5 years. JADF South orchestrates interdictions at sea, and they account for almost 4 times the total quantity of cocaine seized by all domestic and border law enforcement agencies combined. Our Coast Guard teams operating far from our own borders capture drugs in bulk quantities at sea, where they are most vulnerable to interdiction. In drug smuggling, it fuels corruption, violence, and instability in Central American countries. It accelerates migration towards our southwest land border. And human smugglers exploit this environment and profit from pushing the most vulnerable members of these fragile Central American countries on extremely dangerous journeys north. Just yesterday, I was joined by our Department of Homeland Security partners to witness the offload of 7,000 pounds of illicit narcotics from the decks of National Security Cutter Berthoff, right here in San Diego. The event highlighted our collaboration in this important fight. The drugs our teams interdict at sea are not just drugs kept out our communities or off our streets, nor do they just represent billions of dollars of less purchasing power for transnational criminal organizations. The interdiction of these drugs symbolize the enduring commitment of the broader U.S. government team to enhance regional security in Latin America, a commitment that matters right here in America. And just as transnational criminal organizations keep innovating to move their product, so must we innovate to stop them. We're employing new tactics, and we're getting new end results. In Texas, we have a team of Coast Guardsmen working in concert with Customs and Border Protection air and marine operations to support their unmanned aerial vehicles, currently forward deployed in Central America and proving to be an exceptional maritime patrol asset. Unmanned surveillance platforms increase our capacity to detect illicit behavior at sea and most effectively allocate finite endgame interdiction assets. Interdicting illicit narcotics at sea requires a team of teams approach. And the counter-drug work of the Coast Guard is just one example of our global maritime operations. Throughout our 230-plus-year history on the global maritime stage, we have earned the reputation of being a preferred partner for like-minded countries who support the international rules-based order.
What makes the world's best Coast Guard? It's not our cutters. It's not our aircraft. It's our people. The U.S. Coast Guard maritime professional, the human connection we create when we train and work alongside partners around the world. Whether it is supporting combatant commanders in protecting national interests, working with our partner nations to protect the world's oceans, defending free and open trade in the Indo-Pacific, or preserving and protecting national resources and interests in the Arctic. The U.S. Coast Guard models acceptable maritime behavior across the globe to bring stability and security, not with a domineering spirit, but rather a cool and even-tempered perseverance in our duty. No one else can do what we do. We are the world's best Coast Guard.
As our Commander-in-Chief says, the United States is a preferred partner because we lead not only by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. Our broad authorities, multi-mission capabilities, and suite of international agreements with partner nations and allies make the United States Coast Guard a preferred partner to strengthen the United States government's multi- and bilateral relationships in key regions. Our Coast Guard presence in these areas influences maritime security, and I note that maritime commerce underpinning the global marketplace against the backdrop of an increasingly complex threatscape, maritime security is in fact national security. You know, when I contemplate national security and we think about the high latitudes, the Arctic continues to be a region of growing geostrategic importance where the maxim presence equals influence rings true. The United States Coast Guard for 150 years has provided a presence in the Bering Sea, and our cutters and land-based units have set the example of how an Arctic nation responsibly governs its maritime activities while building and enhancing partnerships with an eye towards environmental stewardship and maritime security. Our new polar security cutters will ensure year-round access to uphold the United States sovereignty. It'll represent our national interests and vigorously compete for advantage in the remote polar regions. Just 3 weeks ago, the 45-year young Coast Guard cutter Polar Star returned from a 2-month period of operations and training in the winter Arctic for the first time since 1994. Typically, Polar Star supports the National Science Foundation with an annual resupply mission to McMurdo Station in Antarctica. But because last year in COVID, NSF canceled the trip. As a result, we directed Polar Star to uphold and project American interests in the Arctic. And last summer, we sent 2 of our 270-foot famous class medium endurance cutters further north in the Atlantic than any ships of that class had previously ventured. Today, along with Global Affairs Canada, we are planning a Northwest Passage transit for Cutter Healy later this year. And this year, we will assign a Coast Guard attaché to the U.S. Embassy in Copenhagen, Denmark, to service both Denmark and Norway. This attaché will advance our national interests and work with our allies and partners to ensure a safe, secure, and cooperative Arctic as our strategic competitors maneuver for advantage in the region. And we see emerging opportunities for U.S. influence in other areas of the world as well. In November, we placed our first ever Coast Guard attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Canberra, Australia. And he will provide regional services to both New Zealand and Papua New Guinea in addition to Australia. and the new Singapore Coast Guard attaché will arrive in country next year. I see these strategically placed Coast Guardsmen making a big impact with our global maritime partners. And this is part of our effort to increase our footprint in the Indo-Pacific. We're doubling down on operations and engagements with like-minded island nations and quadrilateral security dialogue partners. This footprint includes 3 new fast response cutters with terrific expeditionary capabilities to be homeported in Apra Harbor, Guam. Our fast response cutters have proven to be extremely capable and are making major contributions wherever they operate. One driver for increasing demand of Coast Guard capabilities is the threat of illegal, unreported, and unregulated, better known as IUU fishing. In September, we released an IUU fishing strategic outlook as a call to action to amplify global awareness of IUU fishing as a threat to global food sustainment, marine ecology, and national security. This strategic outlook set forth our service's vision to enhance unity of effort, spanning non-government organizations, government agencies, and international partnerships, and to sustain our global fish stocks and protect maritime sovereignty worldwide. And by increasing the behaviors of bad actors and fully employing existing resources, enforcement tools, and legal authorities to coordinate action, the Coast Guard and our partners will combat IUU fishing in the most effective way possible, together. That's why we sent National Security Cutter Stone to South America to rekindle relationships with Guyana, Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay in coordinated exercises against IUU fishing. And with only 5 days' notice, medium endurance cutter Bear deployed to Cabo Verde at the request of the host nation in the Gulf of Guinea to strengthen maritime awareness in the AFRICOM area of operations to thwart both illegal piracy and IUU fishing. But the real key to spotlighting bad behavior is maritime domain awareness. Last fall, our Research and Development Center tested the ability of unmanned surface vessels to augment traditional and aviation capabilities for operations in the far reaches of the Pacific Ocean. We learned that the future of unmanned system strategy will most likely rely on more diverse systems and effective integration of machine learning to unlock actionable data for Coast Guard operations. These are valuable lessons as we stand up an unmanned systems element within our Coast Guard requirement shop to consider how unmanned technology can augment our future fleet. The good news is we are building the future fleet now, and work continues on the 10th National Security Cutter, named after our first Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard, Charles Calhoun. Work on the 11th National Security Cutter, named after pioneer American codebreaker Elizabeth Smith Friedman, follows. And Cutter Argus is currently under construction, the first of a future fleet of 25 highly capable offshore patrol cutters. And tomorrow, we'll place the 42nd Fast Response Cutter Robert Goldman into service. The recently enacted Fiscal 21 Operations Bill funded the acquisition of the last 4 Fast Response Cutters, completing our FRC program of record of 64 hulls. We look forward to commissioning FRC's number 43 through 64 and putting them into operational service. And later this month, National Security Cutter Hamilton will head across the Atlantic to support Department of Defense's European Combatant Command, while escorting 2 of these new fast response cutters to the Mediterranean Sea on their way to start replacing 6 110-foot island-class patrol boats operating for the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in the Central Command area of responsibility. When you think about it, the acquisition of 11 national security cutters, 25 offshore patrol cutters, 3 heavy icebreakers, and 64 fast response cutters provides our nation with over 100 highly capable ships to model the rules-based order. And while the Department of Defense is rightly focused on hard power lethality, the U.S. Coast Guard provides soft power, multi-mission flexibility, trusted access, and non-kinetic options to advance U.S. interests, preserve U.S. security and prosperity, and address wide-ranging threats and challenges. We bring a range of maritime capabilities to bear across what I like to refer to as the cooperation, competition, lethality continuum. While we train and operate across the entire continuum, it is in the cooperate and compete areas where we thrive, where we best demonstrate our value to the nation in support of the Tri-Service Maritime Strategy, named Advantage at Sea, which the CNO and the Commandant of the Marine Corps and I jointly released in December. The future of our naval services is in fact joint, and we are truly more effective when we work together. And while this look ahead is exciting, I've often noted that in order to excel in the future, we must truly understand our past. There's no doubt that the years ahead will look significantly different than our first 230 years of service. But unlike the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Army, and the Air Force, our United States Coast Guard has no facility to showcase the expansive history of our forerunners, nor to capture history being made today by our heroic Coast Guard workforce.
Throughout our history, the Coast Guard has changed. Our cutters, our people, our name. But through it all, what has remained are the traits found in every Coast Guardsman and woman. Traits of honor, respect, devotion to duty. And though we're separated by time, we are united by a purpose to do whatever it takes to help those in need. And we carry on that legacy, a legacy of all those who came before us, and a legacy that will continue long after we're gone. Because we make history every single day.
As I wrap up and reflect on this organization and our rich history, I'm convinced that we need a National Coast Guard Museum. Ours is indeed a story America needs to know. All the efforts I spoke of today were executed by those who serve in our United States Coast Guard, who continue to stand the watch at sea and on shore, who continue to advance the service, who continue to create innovative solutions to evolving challenges, who continue to forge new partnerships during challenges, and who continue to make history. Our nation is grateful for your history-making moments, your sacrifice, and your devotion to duty. Our history is a history of togetherness. We are the formation of multiple services. Together we have created the world's best Coast Guard. Our value proposition is our ability to work with our fellow armed services across the interagency and with international partners. And our strength is our people working together, be it the boarding team, the boat or air crew, or the incident management team. And I am thankful for the support of local communities where we operate every day, like here in San Diego, the support of our department, the administration, and the Congress. I am forever grateful to you, our nearly 80,000 member, mission-ready total workforce, and our Coast Guard families who make sacrifices for our nation every day. The state of the Coast Guard is truly agile, adaptive, and resilient. And while we continue to face challenges, this past year has reinforced that we are indeed stronger together. Thank you, and Semper Paratus.